Welcome to Career Uprising. I'm your host, Lorraine, a career and executive coach dedicated to helping clients who are 40 plus to break free from feeling stuck and transform into the unstoppable force you're destined to become. Let's start the uprising. Hey everyone, welcome to Career Uprising. This is episode 184, Women and the C-Suite with Dr. Cynthia Bentzen-Mercer. I'm your host, Lorraine, so please take a moment, review the show on Apple and hit the follow button as well. That way you do not miss an episode. We have a fantastic archive. As I said, about 184 episodes now. You can find every episode at careeruprising.com/podcast. No account is needed. You can listen right on the website to every episode. So today's topic is an excellent one. I haven't talked about the C-suite specifically in a while. I did a little two-part series maybe 2 years ago. I think it's been a while about breaking into the C-suite. So it's definitely time to revisit this. And specifically, I have an amazing guest today to help me talk about women and the C-suite, where we are with more and more women breaking into the C-suite or not, what they need to do, what does it look like today in 2025 for women who are looking to move up and break that glass ceiling. So today's guest, Dr. Cynthia Bentzen-Mercer, is an absolutely amazing. She is a USA Today best-selling author, an executive coach, an internationally recognized expert in human capital strategy, and she herself brings 30 years or more of C-suite experience across many different industries. Trust me, her resume, it's impressive, and her insights are going to be deep. I'm sure this woman has some stories to tell. There's no doubt in my mind. She also is the creator of several very powerful frameworks. I think we're going to touch on each one of these today. The now, near, next career methodology is one, human capital investment strategy for business transformation, and the 7-minute pivot. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about all of those. She is a leader, a coach, teaches master classes, speaks on stages. Cynthia is amazing. And I had the pleasure of meeting her myself about a year and a half ago, something like that. We were connected because we both published a book under the same publisher. I also have a book, What You Didn't Learn in School, Lessons on Growth, Change, and Living Your Best Life. And Cynthia does as well. Now, near, next. So she's going to tell us all about it and more about her story. So I'm thrilled to have her in the studio today. Welcome to the show, Cynthia.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. So good to be with you.
Absolutely. It's wonderful to have you here. And why don't we just start out generally having you tell us a little bit about your story? I know you have an incredible career. Tell us just briefly about your background, how you got into doing the work you're doing today.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Probably the first part of my career was not that different from many of the person listening, and that grew up in corporate America, started my career in human resources, and spent about 30 years of my corporate career in human resources in a variety of different industries, and was almost always, until the very end, the only woman or the youngest woman in the executive C-suite. And so fast forward, as I was reaching sort of the tail end of my corporate career, one of the things I always knew is that I eventually wanted to be able to give back and serve the person I once was, right? That person who's listening, that's the busy executive, busy mom, or busy leader, busy employee. And we know as women, we pour into everyone around us. So whether you have children of your own or you're caring for your community or others, I was that person and wanted to give back. The tail end of my corporate career came more unexpectedly, however, and really was pivotal in terms of how I think about the work I do today. And that is after 12 and a half years as a chief administrative officer, in a large health system. We were going through a CEO change, and my position was eliminated as part of that change of control. And it was that moment that really launched what became my next, which is what I'm doing now. And you mentioned in that beautiful opening. But it also was what encouraged me to do the research for Now Near Next, which is I was feeling restless and I wondered if other women experienced the same kind of thing. And so my curiosity and my own restlessness prior to leaving the corporate world resulted in crafting and ultimately writing Now Near Next and the methodology that goes along with that, and was what ultimately saved me professionally when I was unexpectedly, out of work.
Absolutely. I love that you took something that could have been negative, traumatic, right? And you made something beautiful out of it. And I love especially that you use the word curiosity, because I talk about that a lot on the show, that if you follow your curiosity, amazing things can happen. And you did. You leaned into that. And I love that. Absolutely. So tell me a little bit from your perspective, and you have so much experience in this area. What has changed or what hasn't, perhaps, when it comes to women breaking into executive leadership? And I love that you shared that you were frequently the youngest or the only one. So is that still often the case? Is there still a lot more progress to be made? Where are we in the state of women breaking into the C-suite?
Yes, unfortunately, I think we have a long way to go. Not much has changed over the last 30 to 40 years. And there's still a very small percentage of women in the C-suite, a very small percentage of women at that CEO level. We still have a 17% wage gap when it comes to women versus men, or women compared to men professionally. And, one of the things as I answer this, Lorraine, is to say, never in the research or the methodology is this a finger wagging or judgment or indictment of men. So for the man who's listening, this isn't an us-them proposition. Quite frankly, our work is really around how do we equip women to steal a page out of our male counterparts' playbook. And why I say that is in answer to your question of what's changed or what hasn't. Women have been, in our research around the world, we've studied women in 5 countries, 4 race ethnicities, a 25-year age span, multiple industries, highly successful women. And to a person, what we found is we're often conditioned to put our head down, work hard, and wait to get tapped. Somebody's going to tap us and say, it's your turn now. And so we over-index on performance because, quite frankly, that's really much more convenient. It suits our lifestyle. If we're pouring into our church or our community or our family or our significant other and trying to manage a full-time career, and somebody says, just work really hard, put your head down, and, we'll tap you when it's time, we say, great. That I can do that. The problem is, right? The problem is that opportunity passes us by. And so, yes, there are cultural norms. Yes, there are other things that stand in the way of women getting ahead. But where I focus my time and my attention based on our research is the intentionality of women. Look up, look forward, and take the steps that you need to put your aspirations into the universe. Because most leaders, when you aren't looking up and you don't raise your hand, they just make the assumption you're not interested. We know that men over-index on potential and women on performance. So they're looking at oftentimes our male counterparts who are raising their hand and saying, put me in, coach, as they're eager, they're ambitious, and that's the person that gets tapped. So recognizing there are other things that come into play, we sometimes are standing in the way of ourselves.
Couple things I love what you shared. There's a couple things I want to kind of focus on for a second. It sounds like what you're saying is that this is not a zero-sum game. It's not where, you lose and we win, us versus them. And I like that. I really respect and appreciate that approach because I think that everybody can win, right? Men and women together.
Absolutely.
When we take from one, or when we give to one, we're not taking from the other. It doesn't have to be that way. So that's what I'm hearing you say. And I think that is a really important distinction. Men aren't going to lose as a result
That's right.
of this.
That's right.
And in fact, I think the family wins in there's a whole lot of ways to look at
100%.
it, right? Yeah, absolutely. So I like that perspective for one. But the other thing that I heard you say too is we're focusing on what we can control for women, right? They have a lot of individual agency and power, and we need to maximize that first before we throw our hands up and say, oh, well, it's just not going to happen, or the world's just against me, or something like that. Yes, there are external factors. Of course there are. We can't control all of them, but what can we control? That was what I was hearing. Is that the focus of your coaching and your research is leaning into that?
1000%. And it is about agency. I just want to highlight the word that you used because it is about igniting agency. If we think back even to the formative years of being in school, oftentimes, and it's a generalization, right? But oftentimes as young girls, we're very dutiful. We're being quiet. We're sitting still in our chairs, etc. We're getting the gold stars. And the boys are silly and restless and, throwing spit wads or whatever they're doing. And then we grow up and we continue to assume that quietly, dutifully doing the work is going to result in the gold star. And these young boys have now become young men who have channeled that energy into their aspirations. And so the corporate world is different and you have to show up differently. And so it is about not putting your agency in the hands of your leader or in the hands of your company. We can't expect other people to manage our career. We have to have agency around our career and say, what are my aspirations? Who needs to know that? And what am I doing about preparing myself?
Absolutely. Yes. I'm a big proponent of personal responsibility in your career, not waiting for other people or for the company to invest in you. If you need a skill, go get it. Do what you have to do for you. If the company will sponsor it, fantastic. But if not, whatever it is, we have to take responsibility at the end of the day sometimes for going out there and skilling ourselves and getting whatever we need done. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your now, near, next career methodology. What do those words mean and how can women leverage that in their career advancement?
Yeah. So the through line of that is start intentionally working on your future today. And you can do that in a process that is within your control and within your timeline. So again, rather than saying, 2 years from now, I would like to be a vice president, or 2 years from now, I would like to switch industries or start my own company or whatever it might be. And so we often have an idea, we have a vision, but we don't do anything about it. And so what the Now Near Next methodology suggests is determine right now, today, the person listening today, determine what is my next. And your next doesn't have to be leaving a company. Your next could be getting an advanced degree. It could be getting a certification. It could be serving on a board. It could be a promotion, a lateral move, etc. But what is my next aspirational goal? What am I going to start to do right now to prepare myself? What does that look like in the near term so that by the time that goal date that I've set certain is reached, I'm fully prepared? And we use a math that basically is spend 2/3 of the time between now and that goal date in the now to near. So it's baby steps, it's maybe signing up for classes, it's doing things that fit within the context of your busy life. And then when you transition from near term to your next, that last third of that time frame, it's kind of pedal to the metal. Now you're really networking, getting the word out, doing the work that's going to be a bit more time consuming. So if it's your date certain is 3 years from now, you're spending 2 years building up and 1 year fast forwarding. If you've recently been laid off, and maybe you're giving yourself 90 days to land that next, you're spending 60 days in that now to near, preparing your resume, getting active on LinkedIn, building your network, etc. And in your near to next, you're really amplifying the amount of time you're spending.
That makes sense. So it sounds like, if I'm understanding it correctly, it's about kind of taking stock of where am I now? Who am I? Where am I sitting at this moment? Where do I want to go next? And then the near sounds like, what are the baby steps I can take right now to get me closer to that
exactly right
next goal? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Breaking it down into kind of a simple formula or kind of 3-step process a little bit is very helpful, because goals can feel very overwhelming and unmanageable, right? In our career, it can seem insurmountable. But when you break it down as you do to, well, here's where I am now and here's where I want to go, but there's all these steps in between that I can do to make progress. And those are motivating, right? I'm a big fan of breaking it into micro goals like that. Mm-hmm. I really, really like that a lot. Absolutely. So what are some other maybe insights from the research that you did that you want to share? What would you say overall came out of that? Anything really surprising, validating? What were the key insights from that research that you did?
Yeah, I would say a couple things. So what we uncovered is this notion of restlessness. That's the word that I would use, is that women found themselves at one point or multiple times throughout their mid-career. And a caveat here, when we say mid-career, it is not middle age, so it's not age defined, and it's not mid-level, so it's not status oriented. When we think about mid-career, we're really talking about from about age 28 to 60 and growing, because women are working much longer. So 3+ decades of your career where, when you've been conditioned to put your head down and work hard, suddenly you look up and it's this restless feeling. It's this stuck or stagnant. And again, that could happen multiple times. When we unpack that, what we found is restlessness is caused by lack of self-actualization. I have more to give, more talent to offer, more value to add. The role that I'm in, the place that I'm sitting today, isn't fully actualizing all that I have to offer. And our belief, and where now near next really shows up, is around intentionality. The solution to that, right, is being intentional in your career path. Now, one of the things that's really important in that is, oftentimes as women, we wait too late. We wait till we're restless or stuck and then say, oh, this really stinks. I don't like this feeling. And this is a great methodology to get you out of restlessness. What I would love for the woman listening is, how do you avoid finding your place? How do you avoid getting into a place of restlessness, right? So let's say that you're listening and you're thinking, well, I love my job. I love my boss. I love my company. Like, everything's amazing. What I would say to you is, great. Congratulations. Start working on your future today. What is your next? And in your thrill and love and joy of your day job, keep doing that with excellence, but start making progress and steps toward whatever your next is. And again, you choose the timeline. Is it 90 days? Is it 2 years? Is it 5 years? The bigger question then that comes up is, how am I supposed to spend the time, right? Every woman says, this is great, Cynthia. I love this makes all the sense in the world. It resonates, but I am busy and I don't have time. And so the other big part of what we heard is this time commitment, and women not investing in themselves, not taking time to invest in their own career journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wanted to ask you that, because that is a big barrier. There is, many women do struggle with investing in themselves professionally, whether it be hiring an executive coach or getting a master's degree. And sometimes investment is even time, right? A lot of times it's financial, but it could be time. It feels selfish or like not necessary or something like that. How do you think that women can overcome that? Because I think there's a lot of them listening going, yeah, this all sounds great, but.
Right.
Exactly. So how do we remove that barrier? What would you say to that person?
Yeah, that's such an important question. And when I think about investment, time is the very first thing that comes up. Yes, there can be a financial investment, of course, but more often than not, we'll figure that part out if we can get past the time hurdle. And so the framework that I put together around time has to do with boundaries. And if I can it creates sort of a visual mental model for you. If you were to think about a 4-quadrant box, right? 4 boxes, and you were to think about that y-axis or the vertical axis it's internally satisfying. I see it as valuable. It makes me feel good when I do this thing. It's promoting the journey to my next. It plays to my strengths. I have fun doing it. And then that x-axis or that horizontal axis on the bottom is, I believe it has external value. I think it's important to my children's school, to my community, to my church, to my boss, etc. Well, if you imagine that top right is where everything lines up, feels good to me, and it's important. I perceive it to be important externally. Well, that's absolutely where we should be putting our time and energy. The problem is, as women in particular, we put everything in that box. we somehow justify that everything goes there, right? Mm-hmm. If you think about the upper left, that would be, it feels really good to me. I enjoy doing it. It's a play to my strength. I don't know that it has great external perceived value. That's the first place as women we let go of things. And my challenge to you is, don't let go of that. So for me, my example is I made my kids' lunches every day from kindergarten through high school. They like to take their lunch, right? I would have friends say to me, Cynthia, you're a busy professional. You work, you travel, you do all these things. Your kids are certainly old enough to make their own lunches. I liked doing it. It made me feel good. It was my little mommy moment in all the, haste of being a career mom. So don't let go of the things that bring you joy and that you love, even though you don't see them having great external value. The real opportunity to find time to invest in yourself are in those bottom 2 boxes, right? The bottom right is, I think it has high external value. Somebody else thinks it's important. But you know what? I'm really not very good at it, or I really don't like it, and it doesn't bring me joy, and it's not really adding value. And so that's where we have to learn, how do we delegate or pen a check? My example is, I volunteered in my son's school when he was in 1st grade. First time I was able to volunteer because I was building my career when my daughter was that age. And finally, I felt like I could afford the time. And I won't go into the details, but I can just tell you, I was not a good fit for volunteering with a bunch of 1st graders, right? They're sitting on their pencils, they're eating glue. And I'm like, take me back to corporate. This is way too much.
That would be me too.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is not a good use of my time. Like, I'm not good at this. I get that it's important. Instead, I'm going to pen a check for $10 and let them buy tissues and school supplies. And that's how I'm going to contribute. Or if somebody asks you to feed their dog all week, maybe you could have your middle school child or the neighbor kid could volunteer instead, right? So we find ways to pass that off. And then the bottom line is, that bottom left corner is, no is a complete sentence. And no thank yous even better. But don't take on things that aren't providing value. We find so often that women take on volume over value because of the concern about saying no. So we just take on and we take on, and suddenly we're busy with volume, not value. Yes.
So really quick, two really brilliant nuggets right there. No is a complete sentence. I love that. I love that. That is very true. It's a one word sentence, but it is the
Right.
hardest sometimes.
Right.
Yes, it's one word. But and then volume over or choosing value actually over volume. You say we often choose volume over value. I love that concept as well, and I have been implementing that myself as well and asking myself, is this a high value activity? Does this have to get done? Does it have to get done by me? Right?
Right.
Absolutely. Those, I really, really love those. I hope people will latch on to at least those two things out of this. Those
Right.
are really great nuggets. I love it. So before we wrap up here, really quick, tell me what your 7-minute pivot is, because I'm really curious. That sounds interesting. I want to know what that is.
I'm so glad you asked. So the 7-minute pivot is a methodology that I've been working with for the last 9 months. And basically it's this. It's not meditation. It's not your daily devotional or whatever spiritual time that you might spend. And it's not your to-do list. What it is setting a clock, literally a timer for 7 minutes. We know that when we set a timer, neurologically, we are more likely to focus and dial in. For people that don't love sitting in their emotions, there's an out, right? In 7 minutes, it's over. And for those who maybe want to stew a little too long, it sort of has a timeline of making an action. And the prompt that you can use on your own is, what am I sitting with today? What feeling am I sitting with today that's standing in the way of my joy, my forward progress, my moving things forward that I'm really excited about, etc. And so I send out prompts on the regular, but if you want to come up with your own prompt, it really starts with, where am I sitting today? What feeling might be holding me back? And then you ask yourself, and again, you've got this 7-minute clock started. You have a pen and a paper. All the electronic devices are put away. Nothing that can ring or ding. I always recommend going into a room you don't normally work in if you tend to work from home, so you have a different surrounding. And then you're asking yourself why at least 3 times. Why am I afraid of that? Well, because I've never done it before. Well, why does that scare you? Well, because something might go wrong. Well, why is that a concern? Well, I don't want to fail. I don't want to be embarrassed, right? Now, that's really at the crux of what it is. So then you ask yourself, well, how could I go about resolving this? Well, I could prepare, I could do this, I could do that. And then at the end, before you conclude your 7 minutes, you choose one small thing that you can do today to slightly pivot forward. So you're not answering the entire question. You're not solving the entire problem, but you're doing one small action. And if you do your 7-minute pivot every day, 365 days, you will have spent 2,555 minutes. That's a big pivot, but you're not solving it overnight. So if you're overwhelmed, well, why am I overwhelmed? At the end of the 7 minutes, you don't have a laundry list. It's not the 19 things you need to do to not feel overwhelmed. It's the why do you feel overwhelmed? What's beneath the feeling? And what's one small thing you can do today to pivot slightly past that? I have found that women in professional careers that are really wondering about that difficult conversation, putting their aspirations into the universe, applying for something they're not sure that they're ready for, all of those feelings that pop up, that self-doubt, that negative narrative, take that 7 minutes, get underneath the feeling and choose one small thing, and you will find that in very short order, your destination is very different.
That is fantastic. So basically, you're setting a timer and kind of giving yourself 7 minutes to process and feel your emotions and work through whatever you are feeling. If you have a worry, if you have a fear, or anxiety going into a meeting, whatever it might be, you're kind of allowing yourself, okay, I'm going to feel this and work through this for 7 minutes and come out of it. I'm going to maybe journal, talk myself through this a little bit, come out of it with one little action step that I can do. And then when the 7 minutes is over, it sounds like you get on with your life.
You get on with your day. Get on with your day.
Yes, of course.
It's out of your head and onto paper, right? So you're no longer processing it. Yeah.
I need this because without that, it could, it's funny how we experience things and like a meeting could last an hour, but it could last all day in your head, right?
That's right.
As I know because it does in mine, right? Like things could be going on and on for days. And I've worked through that. That's with my husband. That's just human nature. I'm right.
Yeah.
As long as that lasting in your head, like couple days, it was over yesterday, but it lives on in our head. And that's what drains us emotionally so much.
That's right.
Is the thoughts and the feelings of re-experiencing everything over and over. So I love that 7-minute pivot kind of gives you a little bit of time to work through it. And then you stop and you take action and get on with your day. I love it. Love it.
Exactly.
Great.
And everybody can find 7 minutes, right? More than 5, less than 10. Yeah.
Hey, if you have to do 5, just do something, right?
Right. There you go.
To it.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, so we're running out of time, but this is a fabulous conversation. So please tell our listeners, where can they go to connect with you, buy your book, whatever you want to share for people to take the next step and connect with you.
Absolutely. So my website is CynthiaBentzen-Mercer.com. So www.CynthiaBentzen-Mercer.com. On all the socials, I'm Dr. Cynthia Bentzen-Mercer. That's my handle. And then if you want to reach me directly, hello@CynthiaBentzen-Mercer.com. Books and resources, a lot of free resources are also available on the website. So I encourage you to go to the website and take advantage of the free resources. And love for you to pick up a copy of Now Near Next.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I know you're a busy lady. I appreciate you taking the time out to speak to our listeners today. And thank you to everyone listening. Please do go to Cynthia's website, connect with her. She's amazing. And I know that firsthand. Absolutely. Having spoken with her. And I have a copy of the book myself, The Now Near Next. So it's right here. I'm looking at it right now on my bookshelf. So it's an amazing read. Please go buy the book, everyone. And thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Take care, everyone. Hey, it's Lorraine, and I want to say thanks for listening. If you found value in today's show, I would be honored to have your review on Apple Podcasts. It's the single best way to help this show be found by other listeners, and you'll earn some good karma. Thanks again for tuning in, and I can't wait to connect with you next time on Career Uprising.